At 8:12 on the morning after my grandmother died, I pulled up to her cottage and found my sister's moving truck in the driveway. The porch light was still on. Grandma always left it on when someone was expected. But that morning, cardboard boxes covered the steps, and her blue kitchen curtains were hanging out of a truck window like someone had grabbed them in a hurry. My sister Natalie stood in the doorway holding Grandma's china wrapped in newspaper. "Good," she said when she saw me. "You're here. Take the old photo albums. I'm keeping the house." She had changed the locks, packed Grandma's things, and decided the cottage belonged to her before we had even chosen flowers for the funeral. Then the trustee arrived, looked past Natalie, and asked for me. 025 to 135. Established the relationship and the cottage. My name is Lena Parker. I was 39 when my grandmother, Rose, died quietly in her sleep at the little white cottage on Marigold Lane. To other people, it was an old house near the water with a crooked porch and a garden that needed more attention than either of us could give it. To me, it was the first place where I had ever felt completely safe. Grandma Rose had lived there for 46 years. She baked cinnamon bread every Saturday, kept a jar of buttons by the window, and opened the front room twice a month for neighborhood children who wanted somewhere warm to read after school. My sister Natalie used to love that house too. When we were younger, she and I slept on the living room floor during storms and made up stories about the lighthouse across the bay. But when we got older, we saw Grandma differently. I saw the woman who taught me how to stand up for myself without becoming cruel. Natalie saw a property that had doubled in value while everyone else was struggling to buy a home. I did not understand how far that difference had taken her until that moving truck appeared. I walked past her without touching anything. The familiar smell of lavender and old books was gone. In its place was packing tape and dust. "Where is Grandma's cedar chest?" I asked. Natalie kept wrapping plates. "In the truck. I'm taking the things that matter. The funeral is tomorrow. And the house is sitting here," she snapped. "Do you think the bills stopped because she died?" I looked at the new lock on the front door. "You changed the locks?" She shrugged. Someone had to be responsible. That was the moment I realized she had planned this before Grandma was gone. Natalie did not look heartbroken. She looked organized. On the dining table was a folder with a realtor's business card, photographs of every room, and a handwritten sign that said, "Private sale, No walk THROUGHS. I said, "You can't sell a house because you feel like it belongs to you." Natalie smiled at me in that tired, patient way she used when she wanted people to think I was being difficult. "Grandma told me what she wanted," she said. "You were always here because you needed somewhere to hide." I was the one she trusted to do something with this place. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her every appointment I had taken Grandma to, every broken gutter I had fixed, every night I had slept on the sofa after Grandma fell in the kitchen. But grief made every sentence feel too small. So I called the one person Grandma had told me to call if anything inside the cottage ever changed, Mr. Bell, the trustee of the Marigold Trust. A year earlier, Grandma had invited me to tea and placed a small brass key on the table between us. "This opens the cedar chest," she told me. "If I'm not here one day, and people start talking as if this house is a prize, call Arthur Bell. Not a lawyer from television. Not a neighbor. Arthur." I laughed then, because I thought she was being dramatic. Grandma did not laugh. "A house can make people forget who they are," she said. "Promise me you will remember who you are." I promised her, but I did not ask what she meant, partly because I thought we had time. Partly because I was afraid of the answer. Now, standing in her half-empty kitchen, I understood why she had given me the key. Mr. Bell answered on the second ring. I told him Natalie had changed the locks and was loading the house into a truck. He paused for a long moment. Then he said, "Do not remove anything. I will be there Friday at 10. Bring the brass key. And Lena, do not let your sister sell a single item." Natalie heard every word. When I hung up, she laughed. "You actually think a trustee is going to take your side?" I did not know what Mr. Bell would do. But for the first time since Grandma died, I knew I was not going to be alone in that house with Natalie's version of the truth. The next day at the funeral, Natalie stood beside Grandma's photograph and told people how she had promised to preserve the cottage for the family. People nodded. They did not know the locks had been changed. They did not know Grandma's furniture was sitting in a rented truck behind a warehouse across town. When the service ended, Mrs. Alvarez from next door hugged me and whispered, "Your grandmother would be so sad to see the reading room closed." Before I could answer, Natalie said, "We're turning it into something more practical." Mrs. Alvarez looked confused. Rose loved that room. Natalie's jaw tightened. Rose loved all of us. She would want us to move on. I watched her walk away and felt something in me shift. Not anger exactly. Anger can be loud. This was quieter. I realized Natalie was counting on me to protect everyone's memory of Grandma while she took the things Grandma left behind. That night, I drove past the cottage. A light was on upstairs. Natalie had already moved a suitcase into Grandma's bedroom. In the driveway sat the cedar chest, covered by a tarp. I stood outside the gate and held the brass key in my palm until it hurt. Friday morning was cold and bright. Natalie had invited a realtor and a couple from out of town to see the cottage. She had staged the living room with fresh flowers, as if Grandma had not died 4 days earlier. When I walked in, Natalie looked at my black coat and said, "Try not to make a scene." Then she introduced me to the buyers as my emotional little sister. I could have embarrassed her. I could have told them everything. But I remembered Grandma's words, "Remember who you are." So I said only, "This house is not available for sale today." Natalie laughed and told the buyers there had been some family confusion. At 10 exactly, a dark sedan pulled up outside. Mr. Arthur Bell stepped onto the porch carrying a slim leather case. He was not intimidating because he raised his voice. He was intimidating because he did not need to. He greeted Natalie first. Then he looked at me. "Miss Parker," he said, "I need the brass key your grandmother gave you." Natalie's face changed. "Why would she have a key?" she asked. Mr. Bell did not answer her. He followed me to the cedar chest in the driveway. I turned the small brass key in the lock, and for a second I could not breathe. Inside were Grandma's old knitting needles, a bundle of letters tied with green ribbon, and one sealed envelope with my name written across the front. Mr. Bell asked everyone to come into the living room. Even the buyers stayed, though Natalie kept insisting there was no reason for them to hear any of this. Mr. Bell opened his leather case. "Rose Parker did not leave this cottage through her will," he said. 18 months ago, she placed it in the Marigold Cottage Trust. Natalie folded her arms. "That still doesn't make Lena the owner." "No," he said calmly. "It makes the trust the owner. And it makes Lena Parker the successor steward." The room went silent. He explained that Grandma had created the trust to protect the cottage from being sold in a hurry. The reading room would remain open for local children twice a month for 3 years. I would live in the cottage, manage it, and receive the home outright once those conditions were met. Natalie stared at him. "She left me nothing?" Mr. Bell shook his head. "Your grandmother left you a full share of her financial accounts and personal effects. But the trust agreement is clear. No one may remove, sell, or damage property from the cottage before the estate inventory is complete." He placed a photograph on the table. It showed Natalie's moving truck in the driveway, taken by the security camera Grandma had installed after a break in the previous winter. "The trust also requires us to recover the removed property and any costs caused by an unauthorized sale attempt," Mr. Bell said. Natalie's eyes moved from the photograph to the buyers, then to me. For the first time, she looked frightened. Mr. Bell handed me the envelope. I recognized Grandma's handwriting immediately. My hands shook as I opened it. The letter was short. "Lena, you never asked me what this cottage would be worth. You asked whether the winter salt had hurt the porch steps. You never came here looking for a prize. You came because you loved the people inside. I am trusting you with this home not because you are perfect, but because you understand that a home is a promise. Keep the light on when someone needs it." I could not read the last line aloud. Natalie did not say anything for a long time. Then she whispered, "She always chose you." I looked at her, and for the first time, I heard the hurt under the greed. "No," I said. "She chose the person who showed up. You could have been that person too." Natalie's eyes filled with tears, but she did not apologize. Not then. The buyers quietly gathered their coats. The realtor thanked Mr. Bell and left without another word. Mr. Bell gave Natalie the inventory instructions. The truck had to return every item. The locks had to be changed back. Any costs would come out of the portion she received once the estate was settled. It was not dramatic revenge. No one was arrested. No one lost everything. But Natalie had to face the fact that she had tried to take a home while the family was still mourning, and Grandma had seen enough to protect it. The next few weeks were hard. Natalie returned the china, the curtains, the cedar chest, even Grandma's blue quilt. She left everything on the porch and texted me only once. The truck company needs a signature. I signed the papers. I did not answer the rest of the message. On the first Saturday of the next month, I opened the reading room again. Mrs. Alvarez brought cookies. 2 children from the neighborhood sat on the rug under the window. I found Grandma's jar of buttons and placed it exactly where she always kept it. Near sunset, I stepped onto the porch and saw the cottage through new eyes. It was still old. The porch still leaned a little. The garden was still full of weeds. But it was mine to care for now. Not mine, because I had won something from Natalie. Mine because Grandma had trusted me to keep a promise. Before I went inside, I turned on the porch light, and for the first time since she died, the house did not feel empty. It felt like home. Some families only understand your value when something they want is suddenly out of reach. If you have ever had to protect a loved one's memory from someone else's greed, tell me, would you have forgiven Natalie right away? Then watch the next story on your screen, where a daughter discovers what her father hid inside a watch he said was worthless.